Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Frank Scarpelli, managing partner of Spark Partners. On behalf of our team, thank you for joining us for today's session, Eliminating AI FOMO in Private Capital. If you're an operating partner, portfolio executive, or technology leader inside a fund, you've likely felt the pressure. Every board meeting includes an AI question. Every CEO is being asked about their strategy. Every competitor seems to be announcing something. The risk is investing time, capital, and credibility in initiatives that don't actually improve EBITDA, but are instead productivity theater. Today's conversation is designed to cut through that noise, and we're going to blend two critical perspectives today: the fund level lens and the portfolio company execution lens. Real value creation in private capital happens at the intersection of strategy, discipline, and operational follow through. So I'm really excited today about the panel we've assembled because each speaker brings a distinctly different vantage point as operational, technology, and strategic leaders, roles they put to practice recently, reinventing a transportation business using AI. Eric West is managing partner and co founder of Kinetic Consulting Partners. For nearly a decade, Eric has been a board reporting member of a management team for VC and PE backed businesses, someone who has lived through site relocations, operational audits, interim transformation, leadership, hands on P&L improvement, etc. He understands what it takes to translate an AI concept into something Portco teams can execute without disrupting performance. And we have Garrett Fitzgerald, who is CTO and CIO at Envision Capital. From the fund level, Garrett oversees technology strategy across the portfolio, driving modernization, cybersecurity, cloud transformation, data analytics, and AI. He brings the operating partners lens, how to standardize evaluation criteria, manage risk, and ensure AI initiatives align with investment theses and hold period objectives. Finally, we have Frederick Rumul, special advisor at Alvarez and Marsal, bringing deep transformation expertise shaped by decades of consulting and executive leadership experience, including time at McKinsey, A.T. Kearney, etc. Frederick has led large scale performance improvement and digital innovation programs across industrial sectors and brings a disciplined approach to connecting technology enablement with a measurable operational impact. Together, the team's going to share what worked, what didn't work, and how they evaluated opportunity, risk, and ROI in a real world logistics use case. So, with that, let's get started. Eric, over to you.
Thanks, Frank. So a few housekeeping things, and just to get us kicked off, we're asking the audience to help us fill out this voting image here. So we want to understand who's on the call, the roles, your level of AI fluency, and kind of the goals you're hoping to get out of this session, and we'll kind of address those with the goals of the session in just a minute. While those votes are coming in, you're able to vote via your phone using the QR code, or you can also go to a link that I think Eric is going to be pasting in here in just a moment. While we're waiting for those, there should be a little feedback bar if you're following along inside the app as we're presenting this. You should be able to use the feedback bar towards the end of the content to tell us what you liked or what you'd like to have added to the content. And then lastly, we're introducing this little feature called follow along. So there should be a button up there that allows you to follow along with the content. You'll be able to see the results live as we go through the content. All right. So it looks like we have about 8 votes so far. Just wait a few more seconds for a couple more votes. All right, looks like we're getting a pretty a pretty even distribution on the AI fluency here. All right, so this is yeah, we're getting some really good information here. All right, so evaluating AI for portfolio companies kind of across the board. That's what folks are looking for, seeing real examples. Um, we're also seeing that. Looks like a lot of people have a pretty good understanding of what AI is, so we'll definitely breeze through that. We don't have much content on that. All right, fantastic. All right, so then let's get kicked off with the core content here. So just to align on what this session will and won't do. So for this session, we're targeting talking to the operating partners and the investment professionals who are charged by their LPs to understand how folks are using AI inside of their portcos. It's folks who are challenging their management teams and asking them for what is your AI, what is your AI strategy, and helping them understand whether something sounds right or doesn't. And also, Portco executives, hey, what is a roadmap I could use to answer those questions that are coming from the investment professionals and the operating partners? Um, this is not for folks that have already led large scale AI implementations, founders of AI tools and things of that nature. This is definitely going to be, remedial for you folks. What we're going to leave you with is we're going to leave you with a framework of how to actually get started, how to assess which tools or which projects make sense. We're also going to leave you with real life examples of things that were implemented in companies from a small scale to a larger scale. And we're going to leave you with a toolkit that you're going to be able to use yourself, but also share with your portfolio executives and their teams so that they can make progress. All right. So, first, we're going to just cover and just align on some language here. We're not going to dive deep in here. We saw a lot of people felt pretty comfortable with AI. The part where I do want to spend a little bit of time is this first part of the spectrum of AI. Uh, this is actually not AI. It's rule based automation. What most projects that I've seen be successful, they all start with an element of process mapping or customer journey mapping and understanding exactly what the challenges are either from an internal process perspective or from a customer experience perspective. It's mapping out exactly what it is today, mapping out what you want it to be in the future, and then understanding what needs to change in order for that to be to to result from the as is. And most organizations, as they go through this process, are going to find that 80% of the I wish it did this, or this is what would be better for our company, 80% of those are actually going to fall more into the camp of integration and process automation and probably don't actually need to use AI. So here's a very brief example. On one of my websites, I'm receiving a form. I'm sending an automatic email. I'm parsing out data and sending it to my HubSpot instance. I have a bunch of if this, then that type rules, and constantly sending information back and forth to my HubSpot. Uh, this is not using AI at all. I did have an AI tool help me build out what that workflow should look like and send information to this tool, which is called N8N. But the actual result is not using one part of AI whatsoever. And this is what a lot of companies are actually going to want to have in terms of automation. Um, Obviously, given this audience, we can move pretty quickly through these. Machine learning, people on this call are probably pretty familiar with this. This is still technically AI, but it's more about using patterns and information in order to predict or come up with a result. So OCR, route optimization, predictive maintenance, demand forecasting, et cetera. That those tools use AI machine learning. There's obviously generative AI, which is predicting what the next word is going to be in a response to a prompt. And then where we're at now in the zeitgeist is agentic AI, right, which is using a set of tools, an LLM, memory, in order to create an objective, in order to have something work semi-autonomously or autonomously to produce a result. That's kind of our spectrum and kind of the language that we'll be using in this. Um, and I'll hand it over to Frederick to talk a little bit more about the hype versus reality.
Yes, thank you. Ray. So, as you can as you can see, and what as Eric mentioned, AI is often um, used and discussed in a wide variety of domain and themes. And so the question is it hyper reality when you hear all of that very often at the same time and within the same day? My view is that it's actually both a hype and a reality. It is, in fact, what each of us make it to be. In this debate, everyone form an opinion based on their own experience and knowledge, trying to cut through the extreme loud noise surrounding AI. And yes, the recent and crazy fast advances in LLM is a phenomenal technology evolution. This, just like any gold rush, brings along all kinds of folks, all kinds of topic, offering businesses, people into this gold rush. And in many cases, all this does is amplify and the noise that is already extreme. It is nonstop on the news, in YouTube, everywhere you turn. Somebody will say, "Oh, Cloud 4.6 can completely change X, Y, and Z," or AI is the worst decision I made, and I need to rehire all the people that I laid off. And the reality is that people find themselves in these places because of themselves, because of the path they took, and the fact that they missed the trap and didn't understand what AI was in the first place, or didn't really do their homework. So, you know, very simple advice is simple: is the best way to go about this to avoid the hype trap is to dive in, is to get in, get the experience for yourself. It's hard to delegate at this point in time. Reading the bold titles and the headliners is not enough. Right? They don't communicate. They don't really tell the story. There's a need to really truly roll up its sleeve and get into it to understand exactly what AI can and cannot do, what it is in the first place, and what it can and cannot do in the specific situation of each one of your organization and portfolio companies. If you could move to the next tab. And so the reality is that the easiest way to get um, into it is to actually apply the same old management first principle. Just the same way. Um, no, the next tab.
Oh, sorry.
It's to apply the fundamental management principle uh, that is working in all major transformation, innovation, highly energetic growth, and so on and so forth. Make sure that on the left side, you know what you are going to be measuring in terms of delta in the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. Be clear about that before you start, and then ground the entire experience into what, again, is true for every major change program: clear ownership, clear metrics, controlled risk, and clarity around what processes you're touching and how you're going to redesign it. Fact is, everybody you will be involved in trying to do this have a different opinion, and they will bring you different sound bites. Why? Because they have different motivation, different expectations. Usually consultants look at this in certain ways. Vendors, operators, software, developers, they will all bring v- truth and noise to this process. It's your job to kind of sort through it, and the only way to do that is, again, by getting involved in applying these basic principles. At the foundation of it, um, make sure you know is that you're applying these investment in the right place where the volume is there, um, likely impact is there, the data is stable, it's clean or clean enough. The processes are not just all um, hidden factories. that would be, a sure miss to try to replace or try to influence and apply AI in places where you don't yourself have the ability to document, understand your processes in detail, and then obviously have the ability to control the outcome and measure progress along the way. Now you can go to the next page. To do this, again, just like the classic transformation first principle, look at it as three different horizons, right? In which you need to balance your energy and your investments. On the left side, foundational horizon, um, no regret move, table stakes, personal productivity. People at the moment, the tools are mature enough across the board, across disciplines, across domain, to turn most individual, um, to some extent, into superhuman in applying skills that either they already have, but not at a scale, at the same scale, or apply knowledge that they don't have, that they not have access to. This superhuman capabilities that in many ways AI brings to them will drive a certain level of personal productivity that is foundational for Horizon 2 and 3. Horizon 2, apply that sense of rediscovery of what the possibilities are to driving automation and process redesign, call it workflow automation 2.0. It's adding this ability that LLM has to deal with unstructured element, with data that comes in via conversation, via random emails and PDF, handshakes that are cannot be formalized or cannot be strictly automated into forms. Allow the LLM, use the LLM to uh, jump into these elements of these workflows and bring that ability to reason in ways that human can do today in controlled fashion to achieve the next level of performance improvement. These will build muscles. It will help understand what works, what doesn't work, what the limitations are, how complicated it is to maintain an agent on track, avoid hallucinations, so on and so forth. And that will kind of build courage to maybe get to Horizon 3, which is where you will then have the ability to look at what you do, look at some of your businesses and rethink about them sometimes with a clean sheet and achieve maybe some of these transformation that we've seen in the dot-com era where online shopping didn't exist and became a thing. There will be a wave of new business model that will be created in that third, horizon. And I think it's important for uh, a private equity and its portfolio company to have a a well-defined strategy, action plan, and projects along those three horizons. Passing it back to you.
Hey, just to kind of jump in on this slide, Eric, before you jump to my next one, I think that the personal productivity one, given we have a number of executive level and operating partners that are on the call today, that I want to put in everyone's mind is don't just think about personal productivity for yourself and the activities that you're used to doing over the last decade in those roles. One of the major personal productivity gains that I've been able to get is not just things that I was traditionally responsible for, but now the ability to do a much more granular execution based role very quickly leveraging AI. So the things that you would often require a particular domain expert to do for you in the IT world. Great example is deploy Intune mobile device management. That's just not a core skill set that I've had. I've always relied on teams. I understand the approach to do it, as many of you understand the approach to doing those types of activities. But rather than having to rely on an individual, now leveraging AI, I have the capability to do those things, and I find that to be a big executive level personal productivity gain is not having to rely on teams. And then I also think about Frederic made a very important point, which is you need to be able to understand how to use these tools to be able to then train your teams to use them and the broader community to use them. So, I feel like if I'm not at that level right now, in terms of leveraging it to do granular execution, how can I then, coach and teach others in the portfolio companies or our firm to use them, right? So I think personal productivity gets often a little too skimmed over as, oh yes, I was able to use ChatGPT in the web browser to, read a contract faster. When I think that, challenge yourself to do your work and the work of others and get to that nitty gritty.
And the change management and the people side of things, be sensitive to the fact that some folks will embrace it, some will be scared, and if you don't lay out a vision and a path and a story for them to say, what's in it for them at the end of that journey or after 3 months of the journey, trust me, sabotaging these projects and these programs is very easy to do. And
Yeah,
these folks there'll be army of sabotager out there trying to make sure that all that greatness never comes to fruition if you don't really think about them first.
agreed. So I'm going to talk about, uh, the classic make versus buy decision making, and I think this is both in terms of purchasing software, but also even services and workflow design and some of the things Eric mentioned at the start. And, I will tell you that this is probably the most evolving answer I've given over the last 12 to 18 months, just as more and more capability comes out. But just backing up, fundamentally, the business case for software has always been dependent on how long and how expensive it is to get to the benefits. And the shorter and cheaper the implementation, the better the ROI, the more likely the project's going to be successful. Nothing's changed there. But I do think that the decision making is increasingly murky now with the level of capability that you can get from AI tools and especially even just custom AI software development. Um, I think we've also all seen where we're purchasing software that has hundreds of capabilities, but perhaps we only really need or want 10 of them. Uh, and so I think that one of the major changing dynamics is why purchase the software with 100 capabilities when you only need 10 if you can make those 10 again faster, cheaper, and get to value sooner, right? Um, and and I think the other part is software purchasing has always had two value props. One is you don't actually have to code the product yourself, but the other is that you're able to get industry best practices and processes almost forced on you. Think about ERP implementations and accounting controls and things like that. Um, and while I think there's massive advances in the coding side, I would even just step back and say there's also massive advances in how AI can help you to design and implement best practice processes as you're building out those tools as well. And what I've seen in the last year, just to give you my journey on some of the custom software development, a year ago or a year and a half ago, when I started to really dive into things like Bolt or Lovable, I couldn't have a database. I couldn't authenticate. I couldn't do sensitive information. I could barely mock up screens. Today, the opposite is true. You can do all of those things without a coding background, just bringing good architectural and process mindset to it. So I think that's making the decision much more murkier. Um, the second thing that I think is changing is you don't have to make this decision up front. I would advocate for you to prototype first. Get something small in front of your users quickly using some of these tools like a Lovable. Um, and get that requirements feedback iteratively and much sooner in the process. I think the traditional approach of let's spend a year putting together the list of 1,000 perfect requirements, and then going into an 18-month implementation cycle to then hoping your perfect requirements were perfect, but inevitably they weren't. I don't think we have to go through that type of cycle as much if you're out there prototyping with these tools, putting them in front of users, getting that feedback, breaking the process. And even if at the end of that, the answer is not to build it yourself, it is to implement a tool, you have learned so much more early in the process to make your software implementation successful. So I think these tools are a must have, like the Lovables and doing this early prototyping. And then look, we added on here a have made category. Obviously, we've had the ability to outsource software development for a long time, but I want to just highlight here that if you are outsourcing development, whether it's creation of a Power BI report or a fully custom application to firms that aren't all in on AI coding development, uh, you're overpaying them by a significant margin now, because the companies and the services groups that are leaning into it can do it very fast, for you, much cheaper, achieve the benefits. And so I think that needs to be a really core element of who you bring in. And again, not just for software development, but even on services consulting and process improvement. Um, and the last thing I'll say is, one of the big things on custom software has always been, uh, we don't have the in-house talent. I think right now is a unique moment in time. I'm not sure how long it's going to persist, where there is an extensive amount of junior computer science talent, without a home, that is graduating from college every year, that maybe has a little bit of experience, that is more and more native in this way of working in these tools that you and your portfolio companies can now reasonably pick up, and bring in, and they want to work on these types of problems. And so I would just, make sure everybody's out there looking at the talent pool, especially in that junior AI capable resource, because when you pair that person with the industry expert, a lot of magic can happen very rapidly. Go ahead and go to the next one, Eric. And, I think the big point is, I think everybody on this call and everybody in all of the portfolio companies and firms, the first thing you need to do is just start doing, and start leaning into these tools. Just because you haven't been a coder before doesn't mean you shouldn't try Lovable. Um, just because your teams don't have that mindset doesn't mean that we shouldn't start to really work on it. And if you're not doing, you're not learning fast enough in AI, and that's the simple reality. I like to say it's not about using AI every day right now. It's about using AI in a new way every day right now. Try a new tool, try a new prompt. Something you thought was impossible a month ago, retry it, right? Because the technology and the capabilities are evolving so quickly. I have probably uh, worked on and tried to build over 100 different projects right now, many of which I've simply thrown away. Um, and I like to bring up this concept of, like, I think throwaway culture is a good thing right now. And it's a good thing for two reasons. The first is learning. By having yourself and your teams go in and build and try, even to the extent that that particular project is unsuccessful, they will have learned a new mindset and a new way of thinking about it. And by pushing the boundaries, you really know then what is possible and how to apply it and think of new ways to apply it to your business. But the second thing I'd put out there is one time use of AI is an interesting use case. An example being data conversion as you're implementing a new ERP system. Historically, the answer has been, let's throw labor at it and manually go through the data. Whereas today, you can actually build a kind of structured one-time use application that's able to pull in data, give feedback to it, output the new data, test it, and then when that data conversion activity is over, you're actually able to just throw away the project. A year ago, that would have been unheard of, because it would have taken months and an immense amount of money to pay a software development team to do that. But today, it's very rapid, very quick, very inexpensive if you build the skill set. So, kind of back to this theme of just getting out and doing and trying, experimenting, and you'll find a lot of great use cases for what I call this kind of one-time app.
So to help us exemplify this and uh, stay true to one of the promises we made early on in kind of delivering on this webinar, we're going to walk you through a few examples of things that have actually been built, and they'll increasingly get more complicated as we walk through them. Just for context, right? I've been a member of a management team, like Frank said, for almost the last decade. No coding experience whatsoever. Right. I've been a GM, a P&L owner, an operations leader, a COO of a small carrier, but no ability to do any sort of coding. I was actually the person who kind of led the creation of this app that we're looking at now. So if you've been logging in or you've been watching this is an online app, not using PowerPoint in order to do this with interactive, buttons and all this stuff. Does it have AI built into it? No. Was it built using AI? Yes. And it was done by, primarily by someone who, 2 years ago would have no business being anywhere near this. So let's jump into some examples. So starting very, very basic, and this is something that you or your teams are already starting to do. Um, uh, is presentation creation. Now, it's very easy to go to some of these tools and say, "Make me a 10-page deck about, the CNG, the state of CNG in Texas or whatever," and just enter and watch out this deck of slop come out. The right way to approach these are, you're having interviews with people that you're getting permission to transcribe that content, and you're saving those into a folder. You have done your own internal research. You're getting input from experts. You're then taking that, you're having conversations with an LLM to shape up your kind of thoughts and your impressions. And then you're giving it to a tool. In this case, this was used uh, or all of these decks were made using Gamma, and then you're feeding that into Gamma in order for it to come up with a draft of the material. So the same is true here as it always has been. Is right. Crap in is crap out. Um, it's very easy to make a poor deck this way, and it's also with a little bit of work, it's becoming easier to get a good deck coming out of it. At the end of the day, each one of these I've proofread, I've changed images, I've updated charts that didn't come through correctly, I've rewritten certain sections to be in my voice. Um, but the speed of getting that framework is so much faster now using that as a partner. So this is probably rudimentary for this group, given the voting that we had earlier. Let's go a little bit more complicated. So one of my clients was a retailer. They wanted to understand how competitive they were on pricing and availability. So I built a tool that scraped information from both their website, and a competitor's website, and I did use AI in this instance. A bot was deployed to match a product from one company to another one using a scoring mechanism, and then compared the cost, the availability, and made some recommendations. So again, this is about the quality of the information that goes in. There's a lot of chatter about how consultants are going away and you don't need McKinsey anymore, et cetera, et cetera. That's not true. All of the consultants are just getting more powerful and getting faster and can do it with one person or two people instead of 10. Um, and so, in this example, I came up with, how to think about inventory management, how to think about what their pricing strategy should be. And I fed that in to the tool when it produced the outputs. So this is another kind of building on examples. These are all applicable kind of mid-market examples. The next one that I'll go through is this one I think is pretty fun. Hopefully you guys will get a chuckle out of this. For one of my mid-market companies, I actually connected their Acumatica ERP instance, pulled in their general ledger, and then created a finance, basically board bot. And what it does is it pulls in all of their general ledger, and then they can ask questions like, "What is my board going to ask me about my financials at this monthly meeting?" And it'll say things like, "Hey, we noticed revenue was down year over year. What is the reason for that?" Or, "Looks like cash position is getting smaller. Are we going to be okay? Do you need anything?" And so it kind of helps them preempt, right? Because this is a lower mid-market company in this example, where the professionalism maybe isn't quite there yet. This is something that kind of helped them with that. And again, this is built by somebody with argue 6 months ago would have no ability to do something like this. um the last example I'll give, and then I'll hand it over to Garrett to start talking about even more complicated examples. A friend of mine who is also a PE professional um was trying to find a way to help reduce the staffing level in their order entry team. And so he devised this plan where now operators out in the field can take a picture of a ticket that goes into an inbox. AI is monitoring that inbox. It pulls that ticket out, uses OCR to parse all of the information on that paper form out in the field, and then there's a scoring mechanism, again using AI, to determine whether that is whether the tool can perfectly match all of the fields or whether there's human intervention needed. And then it pushes the result into ERP with a high confidence score, and it has a human in the loop to confirm if it has a low confidence score. So, right, this person estimates 50% reduction in kind of that team that was meant to be entering all of this information in. And it also has the added benefit of you don't need to deploy a tablet based Wi-Fi required, cellular required field, solution out in the field. You can keep having the operators out in the field use what they're used to. And the time for revenue recognition goes faster because this is automated, et cetera, et cetera. So you can imagine all the types of solutions there. Again, this was this was executed by somebody with absolutely no coding experience, and just a couple of webinars on how to use N8N and a few AI tools. I'll kick it over to you, Garrett, to kind of talk through some more examples.
Yeah. I mean, I love Eric's examples too because they're, um, I mean, as an ex-GE guy, I like to say that AI is really bringing back in vogue the Lean Six Sigma skill set across the board. And if you learn some of the new tools and how to use things like N8N, you can take that skill set and make it 100 times more automated and more valuable quickly. The example that's up here is something that we've been working on for the firm. And the story I would tell you is initially it started as, hey, we want an intranet site to share common links and information of things we use in the firm. And even I took the traditional approach. I went and I started talking to vendors, and I thought, hey, we're in Microsoft. Let's build a SharePoint site. And I got a number of quotes back. I think the least expensive of which ranged in the $50,000 to $60,000 to get started with a well-built SharePoint site. And it just threw me back. I said, why don't I give it a go to build out something custom and tailored exactly for us? And the first page that you're seeing here is effectively that intranet site, right? What information do people need access to on a regular basis within the firm as their main landing page? But then as time went on, more and more complicated and interesting asks came through. So just to walk through a couple of those, Eric, you can go to the next slide. We started building in a lot more advanced capability to solve problems that I was seeing across our portfolio. And now these are, to be clear, not our portfolio. I've kind of scrubbed the images, but one thing that we have trouble with in the lower middle market is just the experience and ability to drive web and SEO across the landscape is difficult, and things like your DNS settings at these companies are often wrong and causing issues with email deliverability and people accessing the sites. And so I was able to build a fully integrated ingestion system from Google Analytics across all of our sites, and a few other APIs that pulls this centrally so that we can better support and help to operate across all the companies and make improvements to these setups for them. Um, Go to the next one. Another great example is CRM systems. I'm sure we would all love for our portfolios companies to be better at using their CRM systems, and to get good visibility into those, right? What are the deals in the pipeline? How well are they doing their marketing? And so now, having built this capability in, we can pull in CRM data. The other anecdote I'll give you on the CRM data is initially I thought this was hard. And so I went through a very kind of manual approach with the first one with HubSpot to build out the HubSpot application myself and get that configured to give more detailed instruction. Um, with the inclusion of Opus 4.6 now into Claude Code, I thought this has to be easier. Why can't it be one click? And so I asked Claude, hey, when I add an app to Microsoft, you all see it and it comes up, you give consent for these privileges. Yes, boom, and you're plugged in. I asked Claude to architect that. And I gave it that challenge. And now we are able to onboard a new Salesforce CRM from one of our portfolio companies in about 5 or 6 clicks, uh, as long as that person has administrative access to the Salesforce environment. So I give that anecdote because I think even for myself, but especially out there in the world, like we have these mental models that tell us certain things are very difficult to build out, time consuming, involve a certain amount of expertise. And what I'm finding is when I just challenge myself to go a little bit further, oftentimes I'm able to do those things now with the tools that are out there. And to the extent that I run into walls, frankly, I'm putting them in the filing cabinet. And again, I'm coming back to them in a month or 2 months and trying again. So thanks. I guess one other quick example, a lot of us are probably on Microsoft. I think the same analogy is true with Google. I would throw out there's also the ability to interact with and configure these other brand tools. Not everything has to be custom. So to that extent, just the other day, I actually had a Power BI dashboard a vendor had built for me that had broken over the last month. I no longer use that vendor. I am not a detailed Power BI expert. Um, and what I used was Claude Code to actually go in. I issued it a few permissions to be able to access that Power BI and administer it. I simply asked, why is this broken? How do we fix it? And it was able to go and investigate the data pipelines, make the fixes to those, and even improve the reports for executive stakeholders and the usability of them, um, all natively. So I think this is another great example. And I will say I'm not there yet, but I'm working on putting an AI agent on it with the Azure AI Data Factory, so that now you can just ask the dashboard questions, kind of like Eric's earlier use case with Acumatica.
Okay. Yeah, I just was trying to go quickly through this one, but um, this is an example where AI was the foundation of a brand new adventure. Started about last June, um, and I have to say that about a week ago we started in essentially production trial with drivers in the logistics space. To really put this to work in real life environment with real drivers, real load, real traffic, real stakeholders, real brokers, and so on and so forth. And what I want you to see, and we'll play a little video because I think it's easier to tell the story than to go through a screenshot. The app is a comprehensive platform that has a driver app, a autonomous AI call center, a messaging center, which is AI driven with the ticketing system, which is AI staff, and so on and so forth. Um, but what I wanted to show you here is an example where AI was the reason why the business uh, is coming to exist in the first place. And let's just play this. It's 3 minutes, and then hopefully you get to see why AI became the unlocking value mechanism. Please
Unmute
mute
Eric.
sound. Start it over, please. Eric, you're on mute.
3 mile.
Oh, sorry about that. I had my
10 years
I was on
ago,
pause.
we saw a future where trucking could run like clockwork. Advances in graph databases and algorithms made it possible to optimize complex operations in real time. matching drivers to loads, sequencing stops, maximizing every mile. We built a pilot fleet at US Express, launched a SaaS platform called HopTech, and inspired an Austin-based carrier startup AI fleet. The math worked, but here's what we learned the hard way. Optimization is only as good as its execution. Where will the driver actually take a break? For how long? Is the shipper ready? Will the receiver cause 2 hours of detention? More than half the time, the plan couldn't survive contact with reality. And in a tightly optimized network, when one domino falls, they all fall. We could reset them quickly, but the value had already leaked. The fix seemed obvious. Proactive oversight. Monitor every journey. Call ahead to shippers. Manage driver hours of service in real time. But that level of attention required an army of dispatchers, and the cost wiped out every dollar the optimization saved. Worse, any communication with a driver risked texting while driving. It was the most frustrating paradox. The solution existed, but it was economically impossible. Then voice-based conversational AI matured, and everything changed. We realized we could give every single driver a dedicated 24/7 AI dispatcher and road assistant. No texting, no expensive call centers. We called it Zen Trucking, a calm, intelligent AI road companion that will become the driver's best friend and keep its wheel turning. Zen continuously monitors position and watches for traffic ahead. It recalculates the driver's hours of service clocks in real time. It replans stops and breaks, confirms parking availability, and calls ahead to shippers and receivers to make sure everything is ready. And when the current load is done, Zen scans thousands of available loads to find the optimal next match using the same optimization techniques we've spent a decade perfecting. The driver stays safe, informed, and on plan. AI isn't just our product, it's how we built the company. From writing the first investor pitch, to generating 80% of our code base, to creating this very video. Zen Trucking is what happens when a decade of optimization expertise meets the AI moment. We didn't just solve the technology problem, we solved the human problem, and that changes everything.
So that's it. Pretty big breakthrough in my opinion, and hopefully in the next 6 months we'll see this in real life in many different trucking operations.
Yeah, and
Uh,
there's quite a bit of advances going on in logistics. Just about reading PDFs and helping TMSs and ERPs translate that information, et cetera. I've had an opportunity to check out Frederick's advances in this, and he's recently signed up 100 trucks, and so pretty excited to see progress on that one. But this is an example of kind of rethinking an entire function where it happened to become a company and a product that others can consume. But this is a way of rethinking that entire function at multiple companies, right? Doesn't just have to be a product that you can consume. This might be something you want to build or invest in yourselves. Okay, so uh, that is the primary content. We have a few more, about 5 minutes worth of content to wrap up, and then we'll get into Q&A. This next section is great. We've seen some examples. How do we actually move our portcos towards this type of execution? How do we help evangelize? How do we make sure they're doing it the right and safe way? The first is especially for investment professionals, for operating partners, determine the AI operating model. And what I mean by that is there's some funds that prefer to have a little bit more say in what the overall what the overall architecture might look like. Maybe they have a group buying organization where they've already gotten a great discount on enterprise use of, Microsoft tools or Claude, Anthropic tools, et cetera, and they want portcos to use those primarily. Maybe they have a partner ecosystem that they favor. So figuring out what those are, and which one's going to be more fund driven versus portco responsible, that's really important to set out and make sure you're being clear with the operating companies. Next is that the process and governance. So once you've got that operating model, regardless of who's running point, fund, or portco, is what does that look like? Who is um, single nose to touch, if you will, at the portfolio company that represents what that AI strategy is? Is there a name? Have you identified people inside the organization that are going to be kind of the tip of the spear in helping evangelizing and getting things off the ground? Do you actually have a methodology for evaluating projects and what the potential EBITDA improvement is going to be? So figuring out what that process looks like, how frequently you're going to be evaluating, maybe some of these pilots would fall below the value that your board has decided you want, to investment decisions, but maybe for AI, that's something separate. Even though it's lower dollar investment, you still might want to elevate this at a monthly or quarterly meeting to make sure you have eyes on it, have discussions. Lastly is kind of that action plan. We're going to try to put some context. I won't go through all of these, but put some context to each one of those stages of steps that individuals can take. So in personal productivity, figuring out what are those roles and functions, how do you give examples, how do you provide them with tools, how do you create a safe environment so that they can practice with some of these tools. Workflow automation, again, like we've been saying, and I have a little bit of a GE background as well, so I definitely agree with Garrett. Kind of going back to basics of doing that process work, grabbing a process mapping tool, make sure you understand your as is, your to be. What KPIs are you going to measure to make sure that it is working correctly? Do you actually need AI? Can this be something that you manage yourself with process automation or integration? Um, and then the enterprise transformation. This is all ROI driven. It's all understanding what's the world of possible. And kind of the last point I'll make on this entire section is along each one of these steps, the amount of feedback that you're able to give to the teams as they're working through these steps is only as good as your understanding, a working understanding of AI. So kind of back to Garrett's point and Frederick's point from earlier, really encourage people to actually build things themselves. Go get a free N8N account, go get some free credits on each one of these coding tools, try something, and then see what's possible just from your level of knowledge. And then that'll help evangelize, down to the Portco level. Um, a quick note, Frederick, Garrett, and myself, we are not security experts. We did go to a Holiday Inn last night, but we're definitely not experts on this. You absolutely need to be including your CISOs, your CIOs, your CTOs, getting the tech team engaged. They need to be a major stakeholder in all of this. It's not best practice to have them necessarily lead, business improvement or customer workflow improvement initiatives, even when AI is engaged, but having them as a key member of the team to make sure that safety, both of your products, and your information, is maintained. Okay, so that's the core content. There's going to be a workshop on the 25th and a conference on the 26th in Austin. There's only 7 spots remaining for the workshop. There's a code right there for $100 off. We're going to be going a little bit deeper into this and actually helping people build out governance plans, evaluating potential AI tools. There's going to be a gentleman joining from a solution provider that's actually going to be doing a live demo of creating some AI tools live in the session. So definitely check that out. Check out the conference. There's already a lot of AI operating partners, CIOs, investment professionals signed up to go to that. So you'll be in good company there. And then lastly, the link that was shared earlier, this in this app, we're going to have an AI toolkit available. Again, for most of the folks on this call, this might be a little bit uh, basic, but certainly to help evangelize within your firm or at the portco level, this has a lot of great content that we've aggregated. So just some terms in AI to help people get up to speed, a tool database of tools that all three of us presenters have used or evaluated what they do, and then whether there's a free tier, yes or no. Some content creators that are on LinkedIn or X or Substack, etc., that can help you with detailed instructions of like how to jump in and get started. And then lastly, the 30-day challenge. We're actually reformatting that right now just because all the advancements in the last 60 days. So a good point to remember or remind everyone, we do have that feedback button. So if there's anything where you would have, hey, here's an idea of what I'd like to see in that 30-day challenge. Here's an idea of an exercise that I would really like to experience if I was able to attend that workshop, and then just generic feedback on all of the content that we had so far. So with that, that's the end of the content, and we'll kind of kick it over to Frank for any questions that came in.
We do have a few, Eric, and then maybe we can go from the questions, and you can spend a minute or two on things you didn't have time for. So the first question comes from Don Brumfill. It says, which category would you place an integrated AI ecosystem that protects corporate data and provides meaningful context? An example might be using intelligent content platform to protect unstructured data and integrate with leading AI tools.
Um, I think I'm happy to talk about a couple of um, tools and brands that I've looked at recently. I think this is a space where I'm still looking to you know specific solution providers that have a lot of deep domain experience in data loss prevention and data protection at rest. I think obviously Microsoft's got a number of things as well if you're already in the Microsoft ecosystem. But I'm still relying on vendors in that case, because they bring that domain experience, which is very important in the security realm. And I'm looking for those that are actively integrating AI into their products, and to my earlier slide, making sure that that information is open to me to consume in a variety of other ways outside of their tool as well. But if you want to reach out, I'm happy to kind of talk about specific brand names that I've liked um, offline as well. But I do think that when you're talking about injecting AI into security tools in general, but especially around your sensitive data, that is where I'm still probably more on the buy side than on the build. Maybe not forever, but certainly for right now.
We've got two more questions, both from Michael Marchand. First one is, do you write the presentation with ChatGTP/Claude/Gemini and then have it render it into a code for a Gamma or Present, or do you go straight into Gamma? And he said that he's found the former better.
Yeah, I can take this one. So I employ a method called like the board method. So what I do is I interact, like I'll often have maybe transcripts from conversations that I've had. I'll have my own personal research done, and I'll use those as inputs, and I'll have a conversation with maybe one of those resources. Let's call it Gemini, and they'll give me some ideas about what that structure is, and I'll talk to it, but then I'll copy that response and I'll go to a different one, and this is kind of called the board method, and I'll go to a different one and I'll say, here's the same inputs. This is what Gemini said. What do you think, Claude? And then I ask it to critique it, and it gives a critique, right? And I'll take that response and I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll say, this is what two other ones did. Try to beat them, right? And kind of have them compete and with each other. And again, I'm not just taking their output, right? Each time along the way, I'm steering it. No, that's not right. Let's do this instead. Um, and this is a very helpful way. This is similar. I'm a former management consultant. It's a similar way that you would do this when you're in the team room with a whiteboard, coming up with a storyline and what content we need. But now you're doing it with kind of this expert, this genius on the computer, and kind of steering and having that conversation that way. So completely agree with you. You definitely need to have that experience outside of one of those tools and then put it in there. Those tools are making advances so that they want to be the one-stop shop, but right now I don't recommend that.
And this last one is, actually, the government just had a problem where somebody, uploaded classified documents into ChatGPT. So, security question: how do you overcome the security concerns about linking the GL to a chatbot? Smaller portcos often have loose security, and that needs to be tightened.
Yeah, so definitely invite Garrett to add on top of this, but since this was my tool, um, uh, basically you can use different language models that you can actually keep sandboxed inside of your own environment in order to use the large language model math, but not connect outside of your systems and share that information outside. So those are definitely methods, and again, I imagine all the CIOs and the CISOs, et cetera, are getting up to speed on how to employ large language models to be
Yeah.
inside of their own organizations. But yeah, Garrett, do you want to add to that?
I mean, a few key points. I mean, I think one is, um, it's certainly there's a big question as to the scale of the company, what industry you're in, regulatory concerns. All that needs to be factored in. I think my answer is drastically different for a healthcare company than it is for a three-site lower middle market manufacturer of widgets, right? And I think you need to be thoughtful about the risk you take. Certainly, though, in the latter category, I think speed is not moving fast enough may be a greater risk. But then the second point I'll give you on just security in general, one of the biggest security issues right now related to data is not whether or not the models are training on your data. If you're paying for a professional plan and in the right terms of service and using the right APIs, then they are not, right. And I think that's important. However, if it's individuals creating their own paid accounts, although you've addressed that risk, these LLMs can become large file stores, right, where people are uploading a lot of information. And I think of that risk very similar to a personal Google Drive, where you have the insider threat of people that are able to extract information into account you don't control. And so the first thing that I do is make sure that I have these corporate accounts set up SSO enabled so that while people are using them, they're using them on a company controlled account that can be turned off, and that data is still, controlled and owned by the company itself. And then we do take steps to block the ones that we don't have that enabled on. So I would think of it as a oftentimes an insider threat of removing data, even more so than worrying about the LLM's training. Now, there's a big training element of don't go if you're using the free product, then they will be training on your data, and that is getting out there. So there's definitely an education that has to happen around the free product and free APIs that are out there to use.
There's a lot of discussion around on-prem coming back.
Yeah, um, I'm. I I think that's going to split, but I think it's going to become more and more popular. The ability to run these models, forget security, is actually far cheaper when you start getting into the 24/7 use cases. To just buy the hardware and run 24/7 on your own metal. So aside from security, depending on the use case, uh, I think we will see a lot more on-prem.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Does anyone have any final thoughts? We're about 4 minutes over as it is, but um, we have a few
Hope to
people
see
still.
everyone in Austin.
Yeah, that would be great. It's going to
Yep.
be, and Eric, did you want to share the name of the vendor that's going to be attending and helping us?
Oh, yeah, it'll be Richard Denton. He's created a firm that deploys AI products using a tool called Replit, which is quickly becoming, one of the more popular um, kind of code generation tools used by, implementers. And he's going to be able to show teams kind of building a tool live demo, uh, so that people can witness what that kind of looks like.
That's great. So thanks everyone, Eric, Garrett, Frederic. It's really insightful stuff. I'm really looking forward to the workshop. People are actually going to be able to walk away with something that they can implement, and I think that's pretty cool. Everyone out there, please do go to privatecapitalglobal.com. Check out our events page. Hopefully, we'll see you in Austin. We have a lot of opportunities to attend events this year. We've got 8 events happening. We've got a MedTech conference, and Drew Bledsoe is going to be one of our guests of honor in April. And there's another fall conference for manufacturing and industrial. Lots of good stuff happening in the private capital sector. So we hope you'll join us. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.